In this 25th anniversary year of September 11th, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation continues to honor America's heroes. Heroes like Fire Lieutenant Michael Wells, who was inspired by 9/11 to serve his community. After 14 dedicated years of service, he lost his battle with occupational cancer, leaving behind his wife, Katie, and their 3 children. Tunnel to Towers honored Lieutenant Wells by paying off the family's mortgage in recognition of his sacrifices. Donate $11 monthly and amplify your impact with a car or land donation. Go to T2T.org.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, we're going to get to some details in a moment, some stunning details about the attempted assassin at the White House Correspondents Dinner in Washington. And boy, they are chilling. Also, the price tag on the war, Operation Epic Fury against Iran. So far, $25 billion with the B dollars, which is a lot of money, but not compared to the price of so many other things that the Democrats have turned a blind eye to. And also, if you look at the price of everything that's cost the U.S. with Ukraine and Russia, it's a lot more. There are so many things going on right now and so many angles to the story. But Democrats right now they care about the price tag. Now they care about the cost of what it takes to go to war and to protect freedom. And you guys all know, I actually thought and still think it's important to support Ukraine. I would love to see Putin kicked out of Ukraine. I think that would be tremendous for history and the right thing to do. But they didn't complain about the price tag when everything was being sent left and right by Biden. And take a listen to Seth Moulton today, Democrat of Massachusetts, because Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, was on Capitol Hill. And it was all about how much is it costing? How much is it costing the consumer? You can tell these are the midterm talking points. And of course, this comes also today. There was a big decision in the Supreme Court that could really reshape the Voter Act. And when you look at it, this decision, which they essentially said you can't use color, you can't use race as a criteria for gerrymandering, for redistricting. A lot of people are saying this decision where they reshaped a district in Louisiana, that they did it based on race to have more African Americans, interestingly, in these districts, that's not the proper use. That is not when you can do gerrymandering. You're not supposed to base anything on race one way or the other. And so it's a fascinating decision that could actually, some people are saying tonight, could actually reshape more than 19 or 20 seats for the GOP for the midterms. So that could be tremendous news for the Republican Party that the justices on a 6-3 decision struck down that Louisiana congressional map, which would have had a map that would have been very favorable to the Democrats. But the meantime, you could just tell that the Democrats are desperate. They're trying to find a talking point saying, hey, you're paying more money in gas. It's because of Trump and because of this war. They're calling it a quagmire. They're saying it's costing ka-ching, ka-ching. And President Trump is saying it's a drop in the bucket to make sure that Iran never gets nuclear weapons. Listen to Seth Moulton talking to Pete Hegseth during a very contentious Capitol Hill hearing.
Did you advise the president that we should attack Iran?
We were, first of all, in this position in the cabinet, we never talk about what we would advise the president to do or not.
Do you think the president or you deserve more?
I've been in every meeting.
I understand
with
that,
the chairman
Mr.
and everybody else as those decisions were made. And he got every perspective possible when it came.
I'm just asking what your perspective is. Are you afraid to take ownership of this? Do you think it was a good idea or not?
As I've consulted the president, do I think it's a good idea to confront a nuclear bomb
to start this
in the
war?
hands of the? Imagine what the world would look like right now if Iran had a nuclear weapon.
Okay, so let's just
imagine.
Which, by the way,
if they had one, which the Obama deal was going to allow them,
including the first Trump administration,
they had one,
prevented them from having a nuclear weapon. So, listen, how is this war going? Do you think we're winning?
Militarily on the battlefield, it's been an astounding military success.
No, but are we winning the war?
Absolutely.
Okay, so do you call Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz winning?
Well, I would say the blockade that we hold that doesn't allow anything to come in or out of Iranian ports.
Okay, so we've blockaded their blockade. So they blockaded us, and then we blockaded their blockade. That's like saying, tag, you're it. Or, if President Madison had said, well, the British just burned down Washington, but don't worry, we're going to burn it down as well. Chairman Kane, did the military have plans for the idea that Iran might blockade the strait?
Sure. Thanks for the question. I'll answer it this way. In this job, I have to maintain trust with a variety of constituents.
Okay, I'm just asking if the military
Yes,
had
sir.
plans.
As always, my point in this is, as I explain the role, my point in this is we always offer a full range of military options that are carefully considered with the associated risks with those options and the considerations therein.
So, Mr. Secretary, did you consider this risk?
Of course, this department has looked at all aspects of this risk. And
So then why did you
this
send the
department
minesweepers, the only minesweepers we had in the Gulf, to Singapore weeks before the war started?
We have lots of capabilities that you may or may not be aware of at the classified level.
Wow. And then here is Pete Hegseth replying to Seth Moulton after that one.
Did you advise the president that we should attack Iran?
We were, first of all, in this position in the cabinet, we never talk about what we would advise the president to do or not.
Do you think the president or you deserve more?
I've been in every meeting.
I understand
with
that,
the chairman
Mr.
and
Secretary.
everybody else as those
Secretary,
critical
I'm asking
decisions
the
were
questions.
made, and he got every perspective possible when it came.
I'm
to
just asking what your perspective is. Are you afraid to take ownership of this? Do you think it was a good idea or not?
As I've consulted the president. Do I think it's a good idea to confront a nuclear bomb
To start this
in the
war.
hands of the? Imagine what the world would look like right now if Iran had a nuclear weapon.
Okay, so let's
just imagine.
Which, by the way,
if they had one,
every
which the
previous
Obama deal was going to allow them to
including
do,
the first Trump administration,
if they had one.
prevented them from having a nuclear weapon. So, listen, how is this war going? Do you think we're winning?
Militarily on the battlefield, it's been an astounding military success.
No, but are we winning the war?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had to play it twice because it was so good. I mean, Pete Hegseth gave a master class in responding to these crazy. I mean, he was totally verbally ready. He was like, whatever you're going to throw at me, bring it on. And that's the way to handle the crazy Democrats who are just trying to get a little bit of a soundbite, a little clip that they can play in a campaign ad. And today also, we got some stunning details about Cole Allen. He is the shooter there, the attempted, alleged assassin there at the White House Correspondents Dinner last weekend, releasing a photo. This came from the Department of Justice showing him. And this sent chills down my spine, guys, because we saw the picture of him laying on the ground. Remember, he had his shirt off, and they do that because they want to make sure he doesn't have any explosives or weapons or things on him. That's why they always take the shirts off, and they go through, pat down everything on somebody like this, of course. And so in this case, what was released today was really chilling. You see Cole Allen taking a picture on his cell phone on the mirror, at the mirror, of himself. And this was at 8:03 p.m. on the night that he stormed the magnetometer. Now, it was just after 8:30 that he stormed that magnetometer with the Secret Service guys. But what was so chilling is if you see this guy, he's all dressed up. He's wearing like a tie. He's wearing a nice shirt. He's wearing nice pants. He's got all this weaponry on him. So he's clearly loaded for bear. But he was all dressed up, thinking that maybe he was just going to, walk into the ballroom with the president. They also showed that he was checking on his phone to see when the president arrived. There are these different apps out there that you can look at, which, I have a real problem with tracking the president's every move. And there are a couple of these different apps out there that a number of these protest groups and others use, and essentially showing the president's movements. So they were able to see, okay, here's the president leaving the White House, and they see him looking at that on his phone. And then they also then take a look and see that he sees the president walking into the ballroom on his phone, and that's when he decides to come down. So he's clearly targeting the president, waiting till the president arrives there at the event. There's also searches well before that to see, let me find out details about the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Let me find out right after the president, it was announced that he was coming there. So this really bolsters, I believe, the prosecutor's case that he was clearly trying to target the president of the United States. But when you see this guy, all I kept thinking about is, thank God there was that magnetometer there. What if he had gotten into the ballroom? He had apparently tons of bullets. He had 2 guns. He had, I think, 6 knives. He had a whole bunch of other things, and he was all ready for bear to go into that room and dressed up like he was a guest, because you sort of see him all disheveled and you're thinking, okay, that guy would maybe stick out. No. He purposely kind of dressed up like maybe he was a guest at that event. So he definitely, I believe, that bolsters that he was planning to go into that ballroom. Thank God he didn't have a suicide vest on or an explosive. What if he wasn't acting alone? That's why we have to look at the security, because, boy, I think there were a lot of problems with the security that night. I have a lot of stuff to talk about that. Take a listen, though. Here is Anna Schechter, and she's reporting on CBS about what was learned today, just a few hours ago, when the Department of Justice put out their filing on this guy.
This is the photo that Cole Allen allegedly took of himself at 8:03 p.m. on Saturday night, according to a new memorandum filed by prosecutors in federal court. He posed in front of the mirror inside his hotel room, armed with knives. He was wearing a holster, and we see in surveillance video that he had a shotgun on him. Authorities say he charged through that metal detector and fired a shot that hit an officer in the chest. He was wearing a bulletproof vest. We're still waiting on confirmation that it was in fact his shot that hit the officer. We've also confirmed that there were bullet holes in the wall. So one officer fired 5 shots, and then the government says that he fired 1 shot from his shotgun, and sources that we've been talking to, our team, believe that that 1 buckshot hit that officer in his bulletproof vest, and that he was actually had a cell phone tucked in the pocket of that vest, and the bullet hit that, made impact with the cell phone on that vest.
That is stunning. So you hear all these details and imagine what this guy was planning to do and what could have happened. I want to play also Cut 55. This is Greg Jarrett, of course, Fox News legal analyst. And we asked him about this new evidence and what it means to this case. I think this is damning.
It really is. And both the manifesto itself as well as the photograph are highly incriminating, self-incriminating. And it's a slam dunk case. It shows clear intent to commit multiple killings of high government officials, including the President of the United States. We're going to see further crimes, could be separate counts of attempted murder, as well as federal interstate stalking to commit a mass shooting because he traveled from California. Trump, I think it can be said, was the intended target, along with cabinet members. And that means, the specific federal statute kicks in, attempted assassination of the president. It carries a term of life in prison. I think in the end, this guy is going to face the full force of the law and spend the rest of his days behind bars.
That would be a great thing, right? I mean, this guy is nuts. And clearly the fact that he calculated, there's so much premeditation. The case is so strong, and there's a hearing tomorrow to determine if he would get out. It would be highly unlikely, but the more evidence we hear about this case, and the more I realize how lucky we were, and the president was lucky in this case. Thank God those Secret Service agents saw the guy, but what if he was a little more crafty? He went down 10 flights of stairs. Where's the surveillance footage of that? He went down 10 flights of stairs. He is carrying a shotgun. You can see there's some images that came out from the Washington Post. And you can see that sort of carrying all this stuff pretty blatantly as he's running through that metal detector. So he was putting it together in the stairwell, carrying all these things. Where's the footage of him going? Where did he stop? What rooms did he go into? There's a report that some volunteer saw him assembling something that looked like a gun maybe in one of the rooms. Where's that person? I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of questions tonight. And we're hearing that he was not shot and that maybe the bullet from his gun discharged, but that the shell casing was still in the gun. So there's a lot of questions still tonight about this case. And how could you ever have a president where there's just that magnetometer? What if he had, again, a grenade and he threw it down the stairs? I know exactly that area right there, the White House Correspondents' Dinner at the Hilton. What if he threw a grenade down the stairs or was a suicide bomber and he pulled it and said, now I'm ready to go to Allah? What if there were multiple ones? What if there were trained assassins from Iran? This is so scary, and this cannot happen to this president again. You know they're going to try it. That's why we got to make sure this never, ever happens again, that somebody could ever get that close to President Trump. 1-800-848-9222, and we will take your calls when we come back here on The Rita Cosby Show.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is The Rita Cosby Show.
And coming up, we'll also talk about James Comey in court, the former FBI director. I don't buy this little I stumbled on shells trick that just happened to say 8647. Is there anybody out there who actually thinks he's just some innocent, sweet guy who stumbled on seashells by the seashore? 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Bob in Riverhead. Go ahead, Bob, your thoughts tonight.
Hi, Rita. Well, I've kind of had my fill of Schumer and the Democrats here at the DSA wing.
What did you call them? The Democrats? You call them the Democrats, Bob?
The Democrats, yes.
Okay, all right.
Because I really wonder about their motives. But, they talk about the cost of the war, and it bothers me that the Republicans don't fight back and talk about the cost of all the fraud. Illinois, California, New York. I mean, the Medicare fraud, the Medicaid fraud. I've heard people estimate that, I think they're a part of the Doge team, up to $1 trillion in fraud. Can you imagine how less our taxes would be if that was true? And as far as the price of gas, which is their other talking point, it was higher under Biden. We can look that up on Gas Buddy.
Absolutely. Bob, I'm so glad you brought that up. It was higher under Biden, and there was no reason under Biden. It was just his bad policies that created it because he didn't want to drill, baby, drill.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Rita Cosby is on.
Well, the former FBI director accused of making a threat against the president. Remember, he said he stumbled on that 8647. The shell saying 8647. They just happened to be on the beach in North Carolina by his home. And so today he had to appear in court. There was an arrest warrant out for him. He surrendered. He did not enter a plea or say anything in court. He just says that this is being selective prosecution against him. And here's what he put out on social media today saying, I am innocent. Take a listen.
Well, they're back. This time about a picture of seashells on a North Carolina beach a year ago. And this won't be the end of it. But nothing has changed with me. I'm still innocent. I'm still not afraid. And I still believe in the independent federal judiciary. So let's go. But it's really important that all of us remember this is not who we are as a country. This is not how the Department of Justice is supposed to be. And the good news is we get closer every day to restoring those values. Keep the faith.
I mean, for a guy who's like, oh, this is not how it's supposed to be. The guy who was behind so much of the Russia hoax and the leaking of the dossier, remember, to his buddy who leaked it to the media ultimately. I mean, this guy has been on a vendetta against President Trump. It is so clear. And then he stumbles on the same beach where Kamala Harris also, there were shells that said, elect Kamala. It was a few months before. I mean, does anybody out there believe that he just happened to stumble on this beach, that he didn't lay out the shells or have somebody lay out the shells? I mean, that is the most artistic beach I have ever seen, if that's the case, that it just happens to say 8647. I mean, nobody is buying that. Nobody with common sense buys that. The question is, does it rise to a crime and is it a threat? I contend that the former director of the FBI should know better. Of all people, you shouldn't be putting out threats like that. And you don't know if it inspires some crazy person, as we've been talking about what's been happening with President Trump of late. And then somebody sees somebody like the former FBI director saying these kind of things and posting something saying, oh, take a look at this. Look how cute, these beautiful shells, saying, get rid of, 47, Trump 47. That's like mob talk. And this guy, as the head of the FBI, knows the slang of mobsters. He knows what mobsters say. He knows what mobsters do. So there's a lot of questions about what he knew or didn't know. And he's, I didn't know. I just happened to stumble on this. Well, here is President Trump, because President Trump was in the Oval Office today. It was very cool. He met with the Artemis II astronauts. And of course, everybody was asking him about Iran and also asking him about James Comey. And here's what President Trump had to say just a few hours ago.
Well, if anybody knows anything about crime, they know 86. You know what 86? It's a mob term for kill 'em. You know? You ever see the movies? 86 'em. The mobster says to one of his wonderful associates, 86 'em. That means kill 'em. It's, I think of it as a mob term. I don't know, people think of it as something having to do with disappearing, but the mob uses that term to say when they want to kill somebody, they say 86, the son of a gun. I'm trying to keep the language nice and clear. They don't use that term, son of a gun. They use another term. But that's a mob term for kill 'em. Yeah.
But do you really think your life was in danger?
Probably. I don't know. You know, based on what I'm seeing out there, yeah. The people like Comey have created tremendous danger, I think, for politicians and others. Comey is a dirty cop. He's a very dirty cop. He cheated on the elections. He tried to help Hillary Clinton, as you know. He dismissed a lot of things that he should have proceeded with. I wasn't involved, but he should have proceeded with. No, he's a dirty cop. He's a crooked man, yeah.
So how do you really feel, President Trump? You can tell. He just feels like this guy is dirty. And there's no question that the FBI director, above anybody, shouldn't be putting out anything that could even be construed as a threat against the president of the United States. So earlier today, we talked on Katz and Cosby with Greg Jarrett, Fox News legal analyst, and this is what he had to say about the case against James Comey.
Well, I think all the legal commentators over the last 24 hours who have been quick to condemn the Comey indictment as frivolous or absurd are overlooking some important points. I mean, this case is in the Eastern District of North Carolina. It's predominantly conservative. And in a politically charged case like this, that helps the prosecution. It doesn't help Comey. Moreover, the federal grand jury was persuaded that Comey willfully intended to threaten the life of the president. Well, this trial jury from the same district may agree with that, even though there's a higher burden of truth. Third, I think, the second count against Comey does not require a willful threat, which is a higher standard. No, it allows a lesser standard, recklessly disregarding the risk of violence. As I say, that's easier to prove because it's a lower standard of proof. Fourth, I think other people in the same Eastern District have been successfully prosecuted on the very same charges, which undermines the claim that Comey was trying to make in court today through his lawyers that, oh, gee, he's the victim of selective or vindictive prosecution. No, they've been bringing these kinds of cases against others.
That I thought was an interesting point, because if there's others that indeed have been prosecuted for similar actions, you would make the case that the former FBI director of all people would certainly know the rules and the restrictions. But James Comey seems to think that no rules apply to him. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to your calls. Let's go to Roberta in Staten Island on line 3. Go ahead, Roberta, your thoughts.
Hi, Rita. The latest gunman, Cole Allen, he wasn't always a crazy killer. He was supposedly led a normal life. And I was wondering at some point, was he? I think I heard he was radicalized. I just want to know, doesn't anybody look into it? Like, who's radicalizing all these crazy killers? And he's not the only one.
Yeah, that's a great, Roberta, that's a great point, because we still don't know a lot of stuff about this guy. And he was at one point, his father is a church leader. So at one point he was apparently quite faith-filled. And now in these writings, in this crazy manifesto, you're right, he became like total opposite and seemed to be hating Christians. And you just look at all of these crazy statements in him, and he was online, he was doing these video games, he was part of this group called Wide Awake. We know he also donated some money to Act Blue. He also did a couple of things, like he went to a No Kings rally. So you're right, we need to find out sort of which one of these things, or was it a combination of things? Did he meet somebody at one of these rallies that is sort of like putting people in the pipeline? Because you're right. I mean, this guy had all these like great attributes prior to this, years and years ago. I'm not saying now, but prior to, he had a master's degree. He went to great schools. Who was he in contact with? He had an internship also in NASA, which was like a very coveted at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. What do you think? Do you think it was a combination, or do you think there's sort of, why are these young people who seem to come from, it seems like, decent homes and parents, that seem to be, upstanding citizens from what we've heard, suddenly flip?
I think it's just somebody gets a hold of them. It reminds me of, they might have been hypnotized. It reminds me of years ago, I wanted to stop smoking, so I went to hypnosis with all these people in the room, and it works. These people hypnotized to do bad things, and I was hypnotized to do a good thing. Isn't that some sort of radicalization, like the Manchurian candidate? Because these people, he's not the only one. A lot of them have a history like that. They were good until a certain point, and boom, they become crazy killers.
Yeah, they become totally crazy killers. For the guy to drive across, and then, you see the picture of him tonight with his little red tie on, like he was all ready to walk into the ballroom. Thank God he got stopped, Roberta. I agree. And that is certainly something that the FBI and so many of the agencies are looking into, as to how is this happening? That somebody, and so far, we've heard the sister said, oh yeah, he was saying all these radical things and he sounded extreme and a couple things like that. But for the most part, it's like, oh, I'm shocked, and that's the reaction from so many of the neighbors too, and other people. And we haven't heard if the family's cooperating. Maybe there was more. I just tend to think there's more to this story, that people either missed the warning signs or didn't want to admit that the warning signs were right there in front of them. I can't imagine that this guy suddenly snaps and drives across the country. He seems pretty sloppy too, because he's taking a picture and then he storms the magnetometer because he was all intent to do this. But obviously, and also he knew it was sort of a one-way street. He sent this manifesto saying, I'm sorry, essentially, but read this. And he sent it right before he went downstairs towards the ballroom. So he knew it was sort of a one-way street. It seems like I just think there's much more to the story that we don't know. And somebody had to have seen something. And that's why people got to speak up. But we also got to get to the bottom of how all these young people, especially young men, Roberta. I mean, he's 31 years old. I mean, not super young, but he's a young guy. It seems there seems to be this pattern here, and we got to figure out what's going on. We got to change this because, boy, is it dangerous. And we're heading into a midterms, guys. That's why it's all so scary. It's a midterm election, and there's so much rhetoric coming from especially Democratic side, calling Trump Nazi, calling him a threat to democracy, all of these things. And it gets emblazoned in these young people's heads. I believe all of that plays a role, you guys. And I believe if you look at some of the talking points in this guy's manifesto, they so much fit some of the language that we've heard from a series of politicians publicly. So he's just parroting it. And we got to stop this vicious cycle, guys, before it gets worse, because it is getting ugly and it really scares me. Roberta, thank you very, very much. Let's go to David in New Rochelle on line 5. Go ahead, David.
Hi, Rita. I was going to talk about something else, but I'm an educator. Children today are not really being brought up by their parents. The parents are always busy. They're on their cell phones. They're in front of their computers. They're not cooking with their kids. They're not hugging them. They're not spending time with them. It's me first, kids second. After school programs, they're not parenting anymore. So the kids are growing up in front of screens in the education environment. The schools are sitting down. They're not moving. They're not developing properly. Their brains are not being exercised. There's no nutrition. So you have them captivated, self-teaching themselves in front of the screens, whether it's games, whether it's internet and flipping around and Facebook and Snap, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Their brains are not developing, so they fixate. They find something to engage because they're not getting the love, so they got to find something. And when they connect, they go all out because they don't have that kind of flexibility. They don't have sea legs. You know the expression, you got sea legs?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point.
You can do anything.
Hey, Dave, let me ask you, what do you make of the fact that this guy, he was a gamer and he was like a video game creator. So I think you're hitting it on the head that he is spending obviously a lot of time online. He apparently created some game to where, it's like a first person game as the shooter, like sort of violent video games. How much do you think that played a role?
Probably 100%. Rita, they're not, what's the word? They're not engaged with other people. They don't have discourse. They don't have communication. They don't know what it is like to hang out with children or adults and talk about different things and throw a baseball and just play outside together and experiment and have fun. They don't know what that is. That's foreign to them. Half these people growing up, they don't even know how to tie their shoelaces. They can't write cursive. They don't know how to use their hands properly. They're just totally out of it, and it's not their fault. It's the fault of the parents. The parents are egocentric, stupid people. They're fixated on, the gas prices are going up. They don't even know what's going on with Iran. And the other thing, Rita, they got no empathy for President Trump. His children, his grandchildren, his friends, how affected they are by him being almost assassinated 4 times. There's no empathy. They don't give a you-know-what. They don't even think that way. Can you imagine if your grandfather was almost assassinated 4 times?
Wait, Dave, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? That is
the effect.
Wait, you think that they weren't affected?
Rita,
are you saying they weren't affected?
No, I'm saying the community, the United States average resident citizen doesn't have any empathy to understanding the effect of the assassination attempts on our president, the effect it has on his immediate family.
By the way, bravo, because I thought for a moment you were going somewhere else. But no, I agree with you. It is really disheartening. There are a lot of Americans who obviously are chilled by what happened and deeply upset by what happened. I'm deeply upset by what happened. I mean, it's horrific. Every American should be. But your point's an interesting one. Yeah, it's become this sort of numbness to violence. And that's a scary place to be, Dave. It's a very scary place. And we got to break this cycle. And I think you hit on the head. Parents got to do more. Teachers got to do more. Law enforcement has to do more. And we got to care about each other. Republican, Democrat, we're all in this together. We're all Americans. And this nasty political vitriol, mostly from the left, needs to stop because it is getting so dangerous. Dave, really important discussion. I'm so glad you called. You got to call back again. 1-800-848-9222. Everybody, we will continue with your calls right after the break. But first, support our heroes.
The Rita Cosby Show presents Support Our Heroes.
And this is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Support Our Heroes segment with a very powerful story from Arlington, Virginia, where a Colorado Springs veteran was honored in a military women's memorial living legend ceremony, recognizing her for her service as an active duty soldier and also her leadership as a volunteer in the community afterwards. Staff Sergeant Mindy King, U.S. Army retired, was a Black Hawk helicopter mechanic who completed 2 combat deployments in Iraq and 399 combat flying hours. That's a lot. During her service, Sergeant King conducted 7 hero missions in which a fallen soldier is taken on the first leg of the journey from the combat theater of operations. Very powerful and very moving, needless to say, and what an important job she was doing. And bravo to her and, of course, all of our great, great veterans. And everybody, support America's military and first responder heroes. Donate $11 a month to the incredible Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Be sure to check them out at T2T.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And King Charles is going to be meeting with Trump again tomorrow. And then guess what? He is off to Bermuda. I think he deserves a little R&R after what he has experienced with nonstop. And then, of course, Mondani talking about a diamond from British colonialism. You can't make it up. Is that wacky or what? 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Joe in New Jersey on line 3. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes, Rita. You know, I could have done a better job. It's so simple. That guy should have never got that close.
What are you talking about at the White House Correspondents Dinner? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. He should have never got that close, come down from the hotel, walking around with guns and stuff. How did he get that close to get through the security like that, the detectors and everything? He should have never got that to that point. They should have found out, checked people before that and made sure that anybody got to a point with weapons.
I agree. You know, the problem is it's a hotel. And that's why I actually think they probably shouldn't do any events with the president. And also, by the way, pretty much almost all of his cabinet at a hotel because they had guests roaming. There were 1,100 rooms. I agree. That guy never should have gotten that close. And this cannot happen again, Joe. No way, no how.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?